What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Randomly Selected. I'm Mario, and this is episode 10. Shout out to everybody who's participated so far, and to you for listening and subscribing. And tell your people, man, subscribe. Don't forget about my man Dwayne Powell and Sound Rotation on Silver Room Radio. Silver Room Digital out here just doing it. Today's program is very special. We have the wonderful Jacqueline Stewart on the program. She is the host of Turner Movie Classics Sunday Silent Nights. She is part of the Oscars Museum in Los Angeles. She is the ED at Arts and Public Life at the University of Chicago. She has a lot of hats that she wears, man. She is an amazing, amazing person. And one of the things we talked about, which one of those hats do you want to marry Tyler Moore straight into the stratosphere? Tell me about that.
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Wow. You know, I'm proud of all the things that I do, Mario. So I'm a faculty member at the University of Chicago, and that role has been so important to me. That's what I trained to do. I got a PhD to be a professor and to teach and to do research and to write. And then I had this extraordinary opportunity to take a leave and become the first Chief Artistic and Programming Officer of the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which is opening in LA on September 30th. And it's a role that just allows me to do on a bigger scale all the things that I have been doing as a scholar and my archival work. So another hat. Right. Can I have 3 hats in the air? I hope so, because the archival work that I do with the Southside Home Movie Project, a project that I founded to really help people to preserve their personal archives and to work with Southside neighbors, community members to write a different narrative about our histories on the Southside through their home movies. That's a project that's always going to be very close to my heart. And it's one that I think really allows me to show that film history has many different dimensions, not just looking at mainstream Hollywood, narrative film.
Right. It isn't fair for me to act like we just met. So I'm not going to do that. And I marvel all the time when I see your kids. And I'm like, how is this woman doing all this stuff and helping to raise these 2 beautiful people too? Oh. And I mean, we could talk about the how the movies became this big thing in your life in a second, but in the midst of all that has happened in the past year through COVID, your kids growing up exponentially and really way too fast for my liking, but growing up very quickly in this world at this time, not just the COVID stuff, but the world in general, particularly here in the United States with all this just change. How have you maintained the ability to handle that kind of thing?
Man.
And staying in the crib for 18 months.
Yes. So as you know, Mario, I have 2 teenagers.
Yes, I know. Know them well.
I think you put it well when you said help to raise, because their father, Jake Austin, is an amazing parent and has always been, totally dedicated to them. So I'm not by any means raising them alone.
Absolutely.
And it has always been to me just like the most incredible blessing that I went to graduate school at the University of Chicago, joined the faculty. So I've basically been at home. Like I grew up in Hyde Park. Our family members are around us here. We just have an incredible support network. So it's been a whole family of folks raising my children. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think that's part of what keeps them so grounded. So, they have really bold personalities, and my daughter's very social. The lockdown was really hard for her. My son is more, he just killed it in remote schooling. I have teenagers. I don't know how people who had little ones did this when they had to actually help with school. Like they went to their rooms and did school. Yeah. And I was on my computer, and we just had that baseline of love and understanding of what we needed to do. So I'm proud of them for just kind of like digging in at a time that was so difficult. And we just tried to keep the atmosphere as light as possible. That's all I can say. It was a one day at a time experience, as I know it was for so many people.
And they're dope. Those two are very, as I've watched them grow up, which I had to really think about that the other day. Like, man, I watched them grow up, you know, and seeing their development and just how they're becoming these young adults and how they move in all these different circles and stuff. And having a mother and a father who are relatively pretty famous people. I'm gas station famous. Like if I walk in a gas station, somebody would be like, oh, you're that guy, dude. I know you. But you and Jake, for that matter, you guys are like famous, where people kind of have to catch their breath for a minute.
Come on now. I don't know about all that. But what I can say is I'm proud. Jake is an artist. You know, he studied painting in college. He went to RISD. Both of the kids are artists too. Maya's a dancer. We cleared the dining room table out of the dining room. It was in the hallway. We had to work our way around it for a year. Right. So she had her dance studio at home and Noble draws all the time. And I know that just nurturing that aspect of their selves was also so important to keep them feeling like they were still connected to who they were and developing. So I think they both kind of went deeper as artists through this, which was a beautiful thing to see.
In the height of COVID, George Floyd happened. The world literally had a mirror reflected upon it. And there was a lot of unrest, as we know, particularly here in Chicago. It was going down. And Turner, your other boss, because you host the Sunday Silent Night?
Silent Sunday Nights. Yeah. Silent Sunday Nights on
TCM. First African-American host of a Turner movie classic show.
Yep, that's right.
See you on Black History Month, you in somebody's classroom on the wall. So the George Floyd stuff happens. Turner makes the decision to explain to the world why they continue to show Gone with the Wind. And you were charged with being the person to author the explanation. I don't need to hear the explanation again, but I had wanted to ask you this for a while. When they said to you, okay, Jacqueline, this is what we need you to do.
Yeah.
Your initial response was what?
I have to do it. You know, I had a lot of friends, family who were like, oh, they're going to ask you to do that, aren't they? You have to be the one to do that. Listen, when I wrote my dissertation, which was on the earliest images of Black people on film, I spent hours, weeks, months, years studying the most egregious stereotypes of Black people on film, these like 19th century films, chicken stealing, watermelon eating, you know, smoking Black people out of their cabin, close-ups of old Ben laughing, you know, all of this stuff that tried to keep us in this place of servitude and just vilified and ridiculed. And people have asked me over the years, you know, how can you watch that stuff over and over again? But it seems to me that we have to really deeply understand the logics that created those racist representations if we're going to undo them. So Gone with the Wind is a film that I've taught, a film that I've studied. It's a film that's very polarizing. And it struck me that this was a moment when I could really apply all the things that I have been studying and teaching, you know, in the classroom and in my academic writing, and try to bring it to a larger conversation. And you know, all of these debates about so-called cancel culture and the ways that talking about the problems of films is mischaracterized as canceling them. I wanted to provide a better model for what it means to really be like, what can I say, like a civil society. We have to have the capacity to have hard conversations with people who are different, who have different views, and movies bring all kinds of people to the table and really strong emotions. And it just seems like the ultimate platform for digging into things that folks, I think, increasingly know they need to talk about, but they don't have the skills or the experience doing so. And that was the thing that was most striking to me about the whole Gone with the Wind thing, is all the people that I heard from who kind of felt like, and white people, I always felt kind of uncomfortable with this. You know, I love the movie, but I know when this part happened, you know, And they just never had a real space to acknowledge those feelings about it, and then to have some intelligent conversation about it. And instead you just become defensive or whatever. So this was I think, a really important opportunity to say, let's just lay it out there. This is what it is. And how can we talk about it in an honest way?
It also seems to me that having that responsibility to do that had to have caused some folks in your world to be like, yo, do you really, is this explanation, like, is it worth it? Is it necessary? Did you catch any flack for giving it?
No, I mean, generally people were supportive. I think the criticism, not of me really, but of the situation that struck the, kind of strongest chord with me was like, every time you play this movie or all these racist movies, you're building their value, like you're making more money for them. That's the piece of this. And there's a wonderful scholar, Kristen Warner, who was just kind of like, maybe these things need to be in the public domain. Like maybe that's a way that we remove the profitability of these things that are so hurtful. And I find that to be a really intriguing idea. That's the thing that caught me the most, that for all of the kind of like whatever, altruistic academic reasons, I could say we need to look at these things. When they're played, they're generating more income, right? And Gone with the Wind is still the highest grossing film of all time. So, it's that contradiction that I think, again, no one attacked me personally for that, but I guess I really looked at my role in that aspect of it. And I still do very, very carefully.
When you have an opportunity to talk to somebody about movies, especially her, you have to ask about Black Belt Jones, my favorite movie from the blaxploitation era. I was very curious how she felt about blaxploitation movies in general, particularly her 3 favorite movies from that era. The great soundtrack, Superfly, the Black Belt Jones soundtrack. The beginning of Black Belt Jones, he's on the ground in some heels. He hops up on a car and some Chuck Taylors. How can you not just give that movie all the praise and flowers it deserves? I also wanted to know, where did her love for movies come from?
Ooh, well, I just mentioned Coffee because I adore Pam Grier. And I think she kind of embraces the absurdity of those movies. And I just love that about her.
Yes.
Sweetback has to be there. I mean, like, it's the one that cracked open this entire understanding that there was a Black audience, that was a Black audience that was tired of a certain kind of, whatever, like weak imagery. And it's also an experimental film. Just stylistically, that film is just extraordinary.
Pretty important soundtrack too.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Oh man, and then a third one. Ooh, this is hard. Okay, can I say Car Wash?
Absolutely, yes.
Talking about soundtracks, and different mode. People often think of the action movies when they think about the blaxploitation period, but of course there were dramas too. Not that they would be called blaxploitation, but in that early '70s moment, Sounder, But Car Wash is one I think that really gets overlooked. The cast is amazing, and I love that it's a musical, really, because the soundtrack is just so important all across the movie.
And I think it's the precursor to the great movie soundtrack. Well, Superfly would be the greatest to me movie soundtrack. Agreed. But Car Wash preceded Saturday Night Fever as being that kind of soundtrack where it's like, whoa, This is really, it's hard to have one without the other. It's hard to watch Superfly without that banging soundtrack by Curtis Mayfield. It's hard to watch Saturday Night Fever without knowing the Bee Gees and Tavares and all those cats did work. And the same for Car Wash. It's funny you mentioned that because I think in my 3, Car Wash has to be, and the Richard Pryor's in that movie.
Yes, he is. And the Pointer Sisters are his backing band, basically.
Bill Duke is in that movie. I mean,
and that Bill Duke moment, because a lot of the blaxploitation movies will make a nod to Black militancy. Superfly makes fun of Black militants. They show up in various places. But if you haven't seen it, and I don't want to do spoiler alert, but toward the end of Car Wash, there's this moment where Bill Duke's character, who's really, trying to think about these new radical ideas and how to remake himself, you see him really struggling with how to do that. It's a goofy comedy. And then you have that aspect, and it's I love that part about Car Wash.
Where did this love of movies come from?
My aunt. I used to stay with my aunt and my grandmother pretty much every weekend, all summer long, in Princeton Park, 9213 South Harvard, to be exact.
That is the double O in hood right there.
And we used to, she stayed up late, I stayed up late, and we would just watch movies, like these midnight movies all night long. And she grew up in the 20s and 30s, actually. My mother's sisters are much older than she was. And she had all this backstory about the stars and everything. And I think it was a combination of her knowledge, but also that it was just the two of us. And she was just downloading all of this information to me. It felt very special. And I've just really loved watching old movies on TV ever since. And then found out in college, oh, you can study movies. You can this is actually a discipline. That was really a fantastic thing to discover.
Because that seems to me that's the part where it's like, okay, you make the choice to, this is your concentration in college. Do you ever see any of this other stuff coming when you were doing that though? I mean, you're on TV. You're like on TV. You're not just kind of like popping up on television, man. You're on it, and people know you from that part.
Yeah.
I didn't see it
coming. No, I didn't see it coming 2 years ago. I didn't. Yeah. It's when some of the wise older people tell you just to be prepared for these opportunities that you can't anticipate. I feel like that just played itself out in my life. I worked really hard as a scholar and a teacher, really, really have felt privileged to have these opportunities to show films, in various places around the South Side of Chicago and on campus, but opening it up to Southsiders more broadly. And so all of that just clearly, I was introducing movies all the time in person, and now I'm doing that on television. It's just an incredible blessing.
You got a new job. I don't know how you do it with the Oscars. And I know people, we talked about this briefly. I know people run up sometimes and are like, how come it ain't enough? More Black people winning Oscars. You don't have anything to do with handing out the Oscars. We can make that clear, right?
No, I do not. I work for the Academy Museum. So that is, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is the umbrella organization, but I am on the team that is building and opening a museum.
What will this museum hold? And the importance of it being built, it can't be understated. I guess it would be, considering Hollywood's history and all that with movies, this is a big deal. Give me a little bit of a description of what one could expect if they go to this museum.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of incredible that when you go to LA, there hasn't been a place to look at the history of the movies, an institution devoted to that. But when the Academy was founded back in the 1920s, this was always something that they wanted to do, have a museum that looked at the history and accomplishments of movies. It's like a century later, this is opening up. And because it's affiliated with the Academy, it means Academy members across the board. So not just the actors and the directors and the writers, but also set designers, production managers, hair and makeup artists, costume designers. Every single branch is advising the museum on how to represent the history of their craft. So that's what you'll see. Our core exhibition is called Stories of Cinema. And you move through and you see how films develop from the written word all the way through post-production. And I'm especially proud. And the reason I joined that team is because diversity, equity, inclusion were at the core of how these exhibitions were already being created. It wasn't something it's not something I have to argue for. Right. It's already there. Right. So there is a set of significant films and filmmakers. Not surprisingly, you walk in the room and Citizen Kane. You will see Rosebud. I won't blow what that is. On the off chance somebody listening still doesn't know what Rosebud is.
They better know.
But then there is right next to that, Bruce Lee. And then right next to that, Oscar Micheaux, the pioneering African-American filmmaker who started his company in Chicago. I didn't know there is just like a really palpable effort to try to create more balance and more accuracy in the way that film history is represented. So Hollywood, yes, we have a gallery of significant Oscar statuettes, We have a gallery showing significant speeches by Oscar winners. But then we also move into all these other areas that the Academy is recognizing now. We should have been more attentive to these various strands of history all along. And that's the museum's role, to amplify all of those stories.
The Oscars, oh, hooray for Hollywood and all that. Burn Hollywood, burn, all that stuff. The Oscars have changed, though. There's a lot of diversity now within the Academy. Will that make Black and brown actors and directors happier? Will the Academy change the way they look at movies? I wanted to know if she had any thoughts about that, considering that she is directly involved in the Oscars Museum. I also wanted to know what her quintessential Chicago movie was. If you had to show somebody Chicago in a movie, what movie is it, Jacqueline?
That's an excellent question. I certainly hope so. And I think institutionally, that's part of the goal. Do the Right Thing didn't just not win, it lost to Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Lord.
So can I say that one of the opening galleries that we're going to have at the museum is a Spike Lee gallery. He has collaborated with us to display his incredible collection of movie posters. It showcases all of these filmmakers who have been influential on him: Kurosawa, Jim Jarmusch, there's a Spartacus poster because Malcolm X owes a great debt to Spartacus. His 3 Academy Awards are going to be on display. He won a Student Academy Award. He won for writing, of course, for Black Klansman, and his honorary Oscar that he received a few years ago. And so we know that Academy members are heavily invested in this museum. They're going to move through these galleries, and that's going to, I believe, have an impact on the ways that they understand what should be recognized, what should be validated. This is a core aspect of what we're trying to accomplish at the museum.
I know that in Chicago, we're both friends with Kwame Amoku, who is the director of film here in Chicago. He has a very prestigious role in the movie, in the movies, because he's been in several of them. But he is most famously known from for me anyway, the barbershop movie, the brother blocking Anthony Anderson from bringing the ATM up the steps. But I remember Kwame starting as a scouting director, looking all over Chicago, trying to get all these different places and finding all these brilliant locations that had not been filmed in the city.
Yes.
If you had to name the Chicago movie, and I want to go back to Oscar Micheaux in a second too, but if you had to name the quintessential Chicago movie,
oh my gosh, these are hard questions, Mario.
And I've learned from the best. Thank you. I'm friends with you. I'd be smart.
Yes.
Or as smart as you.
Chicago movie. I mean, my mom and I were talking about the Blues Brothers the other day.
Yes, there you go.
And it goes all over, because we were talking about, there's a scene when John Lee Hooker, they go to Maxwell Street, and John Lee Hooker is playing the blues there. There are many movies that try to capture the flavor of this city or other cities, but that one, I think, it's one that makes you feel good, like as a Chicagoan when you watch it, as opposed to some movies where it's like they're driving the wrong way. Yeah. They're supposed to be going here or there. That's not really what that is.
Those streets don't exist.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. All those old police cars.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's one that it feels like it really did try to capture something.
Yeah, because in that movie, it's Ray Charles, it's Shaka Khan, a young Shaka Khan. It's
Aretha
Brown, it's Aretha Franklin, it's John Lee Hooker,
That's right.
Bo Diddley.
Cab Calloway.
Cab Calloway is in that movie. That was like right before these, and I guess depending on who you ask, these folks were all in different parts of their career where they were on a declination, except for maybe Shaka and Aretha, because she was always going to be Aretha Franklin. And that movie revived their careers. And it's shot here, which I really like. It gives me a pleasure that I cannot explain how great that movie is for showing people what Chicago used to look like.
That's right.
Because it don't look like that no more.
It's changed so much. I know. And I'm one of these people who just doesn't accept the changes. It's always Sears Tower to me. It's always Comiskey Park to me.
I know.
Never adopt these new names of things.
The idea of calling something, it's like if Harold's Chicken was suddenly like Joe's Chicken. It'll always be Harold's chicken.
That's right.
I
That's
can't
right.
call it Joe's chicken. No offense to Uncle Joe's or to Uncle Remus. I'm just saying,
well,
it's an example.
thank you for clearing that up.
The future for you, which is, I mean, I don't know how we can go too far into the future, because in the present you are doing the work, but ultimately, where does a Jacqueline N. Stewart find herself in like 5 years, maybe?
Oh my gosh.
Come on now. This is an Eric Williams production. If I don't answer these questions, I might get my pay
blame
back.
Eric. I can blame Eric for these questions.
That's right. We'll put it on E. Williams.
I never could have anticipated this Academy Museum opportunity. And what I'm learning is that it's how important it is to be open. So I have been a real planner all my life. Get the PhD, get the job, get tenure, make full professor. Like there's a lot of those things. Logically, there's a model for them. But I think we're seeing this across so many different kinds of people making moves that not only do we not expect of them, but you don't expect of yourself. So to be honest, I don't know. Being a part of the Academy Museum's kind of founding and opening, museum time is different, like exhibitions are planned years in advance. And so I'm really looking forward to the work that I can do in the crucial early part of the development of that institution. But 5 years from now, I can honestly say, I don't know. What I hope is that by that point, my son will be in college and my daughter will have graduated and she's doing something meaningful to her. I'm much more comfortable projecting the things I want for them than I am for myself. I'm just going to go where I feel like I'm called.
I don't know if any of you guys have ever had a chance to go on Movie Row. It's the same location downtown where your Chick Ricks and E2s and all that's Record Row. A little bit further north on Wabash is Movie Row. And on Movie Row, Oscar Micheaux, one of the greatest directors you may or may not have heard of, made amazing movies in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. I talked to Jacqueline about his Chicago connection and just how important Oscar Micheaux is to the genre. And I said the word genre.
Yeah, Oscar Micheaux he was born in Metropolis, Illinois, so downstate. And like so many folks, his family migrated to Chicago. He worked odd jobs. I think I mentioned that he became a Pullman porter. And Chicago was the center of so much entertainment culture and early film history. S&A Studios was in Chicago. Charlie Chaplin got his start in Chicago. So like pre-Hollywood, Chicago was really, such an important site for film production and film distribution, because Chicago distributed everything, all kinds of goods and services and so forth. So Micheaux, just an unusually ambitious human being. He's one of these people, you look at him and you recognize that he was not going to be limited by his race, that he actually saw the discrimination that he faced as like fuel to excel in these areas. He was a novelist first. He wrote about his own life story. He was a homesteader in South Dakota. And when that fell apart, he wrote about his experience. And he sold these books kind of door to door and then kind of by subscription. And then he wanted to make a film version. He wanted to reach more audiences with his story. He was writing columns and sending letters to the Chicago Defender, trying to encourage more Black folks to buy land out west. Very Booker T. Washingtonian in his approach of, plant yourself in the soil and use the land as a way to build power and authority. His films are really didactic. He's telling Black people, this is how you should behave. They're cautionary tales. But he made over 40 films. It's remarkable. His first film was made in 1918, his last one in 1948. Paul Robeson made his first film in an Oscar Micheaux film, Body and Soul, in 1925, a silent film. And Micheaux just really, even though his films were really controversial, he would often have like these passing stories or People are in love. Looks like the lady is white, but really we find out she has one drop of black blood. So it's all okay. Melodramatic films. And people, had a love-hate relationship with them. But at the core, they believed in this Black entrepreneur and artist. And he, I would say he just without question is the most important Black filmmaker who ever lived, because he created a path that everyone else has been following.
And I've definitely got to let you go now. What is the prevailing thought from you that you try to leave with folks when you talk to them about movies, particularly movies involving Black folks? What and let me not just limit it to that, but I think that's important because of the way that Blacks and Latinos have been represented in movies over the years. It has not been, there's not a lot of equity in our true image, if you will. I think that the cartoonish image of us and the over-exaggerated stereotypical image of Blacks and Latinos in movies kind of, it's not as prevalent as it used to be, of course, but there's still, it's still there in some ways. When a filmmaker comes and talks to you or an actor talks to you, what is the thing you're trying to leave with them, the impression you want to leave with them about how they work their craft? Right.
Well, I mean, I just finished, to add another project, just finished a book on the filmmaker William Greaves. And he was the executive producer of a show called Black Journal, really important Black public affairs show that all these Black filmmakers studied with him and became important documentarians in their own right. And apparently what he told that team was like, we have a small window of opportunity to make this work. Like we have the money and everything's coming together for us to make these films now, but they're going to last forever. And I guess that's what I would want to impart, that even if these films disappear for a while, people find these films, people will be able to come back to them. You're laying something down that has ramifications and can have resonances that you can't even imagine. And so it's important to recognize that responsibility. And that isn't to say everything needs to be some docudrama, but the work has to have integrity. It should be work that you would want your family, right? The next generations to be proud of, to build on. And I think that we can see how the negative representations have had generational impact. And it's now is the time. And we have so many, people who are making headway in mainstream media, independent media. It has to work on both fronts. Now is the time to really recognize the power that we actually have, and to use it in a conscious way.
You and your family have always been nice to me, and I appreciate you. And I am so happy.
We love you, Mario. We love you.
I get carried away. I am so glad that these opportunities are coming to you, because it is really, really important that this is done right. And I feel confident when I see your name on something that is going to be done right. So congratulations for the next 10 jobs that you get in the next couple of days. And thank you so much for being on Randomly Selected. Truly an honor to have you on here.
Truly an honor to be here. Always a pleasure to see you, to talk to you. I'm glad we made this happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you so much.
There it is, Jacqueline Najuma Stewart, breaking it down about the movies. Black Bill Jones, don't forget that. I'm telling you, if you've never seen it, that opening scene is absolutely bananas. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for being on the show. It's episode 10. You kicked it off the best way possible. I'm so glad that you were able to sit and hang out with me. Thank you, by the way, to the Invisible crew who have made these 10 episodes very fun. And hopefully I don't get fired before episode 12, because episode 11 is Sierra McKissick and it's going down. You need to be here for that. That will be coming up soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be well. Peace, power, and progress. Later.